I know that we're in business. Oh, here we go. Got it. Okay, shalom everyone. This is Avi Lipkin here, and today's date is the 30th of July, 2024, and I think this is going to be a very, very tumultuous program. In other words, I'm not tumultuous, but the situation is tumultuous.
Yeah.
I think over the last few months, I don't know if even more than a year, we've been doing these Zooms courtesy of Lori. And I've spoken about a whole lot of things. Of course, I've spoken about Gaza. I've spoken about Lebanon. I've spoken about Turkey. I've spoken about Egypt. I've spoken about Iran, Syria, the proxies. Last week we spoke about the Houthis in Lebanon and Yemen, and I think in one sentence we can summarize this whole program in that a lion can defeat a hyena, a single hyena, but when a pack of hyenas attacks a lion, that's another story. As you all know, probably, Netanyahu was in Washington. He was in Mar-a-Lago. But I hate to say it, but unfortunately, we are back to Washington with President Biden and Kamala Harris, who I feel I mean, Netanyahu could not say it, but these two leaders, president and vice president, are really enemies. Again, Netanyahu couldn't say it. But what President Biden has been doing for the last 3 years, and what Obama was doing before Trump was elected in 2016, is giving the axis of evil the wherewithal, uniting them financially also to attack Israel, and telling Israel not to counterattack. So basically, Obama is interested in the demise of Israel. Obama is supporting it. Biden and Kamala Harris are the marionettes, the puppets. Biden is still pulling, not Biden, Obama is still pulling the strings. And this program that we're doing now is basically the culmination of a process of many years, which is now coming to fruition, God forbid, to destroy Israel. I don't know if you remember, but I spoke about Turkey. And Erdogan, the president of Turkey, came out and said that he's going to invade Israel. He said this yesterday. So now we are facing a number of countries that were not on the map to attack us officially until this week. We're talking about Egypt, 100 million people, Turkey, 100 million people, Iran, 70 million people. They are all in an alliance to destroy Israel. Of course, in addition to Lebanon and Gaza and the Houthis in Yemen. Houthis in Yemen are 40 million people. The Houthis are not a small group. As you all know, Israel attacked the Houthis 3 weeks ago, and the American media didn't even talk about it, which I think is crazy. The Americans and the British threw a few bombs at the Houthis, but didn't really disrupt the Houthi plan to attack international maritime shipping through the Red Sea and through the Indian Ocean. Israel dealt the Houthis a very serious blow. Israel dealt Gaza a very serious blow, which took us 10 months. Lebanon is much more dangerous, but Lebanon is backed by Iran. And Iran has said that if Israel attacks Lebanon, which we have promised to do after the bombing in Majd al-Shams in the Golan Heights, where 13 kids were killed playing soccer. And there are still another 30 injured people in the hospital. The Druze. The Druze are our allies. The Israeli Druze, at least, are our allies. So if we attack Beirut, Iran will attack us, and Hezbollah has announced today they will attack Jerusalem, they will attack Tel Aviv, and we've got to take these people seriously. And President Biden has a very simple answer: don't. But the don't is directed at Israel. Don't is not directed at Lebanon or Syria or Iran. Turkey, in case you did not know, Turkey is a member of NATO. And I mean, we're talking about Israel facing off against 400 million people. This is not a joking matter. And the United States has been saying we can't have your back. So let me just say, Prime Minister Netanyahu did a wonderful job in Washington, but I'm sure Netanyahu is losing a lot of sleep at night because of the plans of the hyenas to attack the line of Judea. And I want to remind you all, the ignorance of the whole world, the ignorance of the Israeli leadership about the history of Turkey, the history of the Ottomans, the history of Cyprus. When Erdogan says he's going to invade Israel, you have to remember that step number one to attacking Israel is for the Turks to reinforce their forces in northern Cyprus, march south, and destroy the Greek Christians of Cyprus. Does anyone care? Is anyone interested? Then, after they destroy Greek Christian Cyprus, they can say to Israel that the gas exploration in the Eastern Mediterranean belongs to Turkey, not to Cyprus. In other words, as you may or may not know, there is an alliance between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus regarding the exploration of gas reserves in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Turks are going to attack Cyprus, but then once they have Cyprus, guess what? El Al cannot take off from Israel. The entire airspace will be divided between Egypt and Turkey. I mean, this is crazy. And the United States is an active accomplice under the democratic leadership to destroy Israel. What's so complicated here? And, I'll tell you, I think last week I spoke about the attack on the Houthis in Yemen. Nobody knew about it. It wasn't because you're stupid people. You're not stupid people. The media is censored. The media would not talk about the Houthi sending a drone at Tel Aviv and killing an Israeli citizen in Tel Aviv. The next day, the Israeli Air Force bombed the heck out of the Houthis. But Americans don't know. Americans didn't know. Every time I do these Zooms, I ask all of you, in all the Zooms that I do, I ask, do you know that this is what happened in Israel today? No, because nothing happening in Israel is reported in the American news. You guys have to be plugged into the alternative news sources, and there are many of them. Of course, I'm one of the news sources. I'm one of the weak ones. There are many others who are coming out with this news all the time, day-to-day news, hour to hour, minute-to-minute news. And in America, you don't get anything. America is supposed to be world power number one, and yet America has the most stupid media managed by the most stupid political leadership America has ever had. I don't know if you had this in the news today or yesterday, but 3 Palestinian terrorists and 1 from Turkey were stopped at the southern border with Mexico. Terrorists. They were stopped, they were arrested, and the U.S. government knew exactly who they were. How many Muslim terrorists have come across the border and nobody knows who they are. There's the case of the sabotage on the French railways during the Olympics. And Macron said, no, these are left-wing socialists. These are left-wing extremists. That's complete, utter nonsense. These are Muslims who are out to destroy Christian France. You know, you cannot heal the sickness until you diagnose the sickness. And in England, there are things happening, and the English government is surrendering to the Muslims every time, and the Muslims get away with murder, literally. And that's the English government. And let me tell you something. I follow the news meticulously 24/7. I wake up, the TV gets on. We have two TVs in our house, so we have two different stations. We have radio programs. I'm getting emails from all over the world. I'm following things very carefully. The American people are being denied the truth. They're being denied the information. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, as it says in Hosea 4:6. And I'm very sorry to tell all of you. I'm sorry that I'm only one person and I'm limited. And I mean, how much can I do? How much can I do with 30, 40, 50 people who are listening? The good news is that thanks to Lori, my son Aaron is able to post these programs on YouTube. And YouTube's Avi Lipkin has about, on each program, at least 3,000, 4,000 people. So some people are getting the information, but 3,000, 4,000 out of 300 million in America, this is nothing. And from people all over the world. So my only consolation is that the Lord is in control. And we have the choice of being with the Lord, or we have the choice of being against the Lord. And this is something we will see on the elections on November 6th. But meanwhile, we are now July 30th, and a war could break out at any moment. It probably will, in spite of President Biden saying don't. What do you mean don't? These Islamic countries are totally decided to destroy Israel. What does Biden do? He placates them. He gives them billions of dollars. The billions of dollars go to the proxy states to have weapons to attack Israel. And then Israel has to fight Iran all by itself. We're going to fight Iran eventually. But then Turkey will attack us. Then Egypt will attack us. I hate to say it. I don't know what to think that Israel, a country, well, praise God, we're now 10 million. But 10 million defeating 400 million. We did it in 1948, 1949, Israel's independence war. We were very few. And we won. The state of Israel was established. And in addition to that, we're facing a very horrible situation internally in Israel, which is giving inspiration to the Muslims to attack us, that we have divisions in our country, and we have demonstrations, and we have very heinous crimes being committed by the Ministry of Justice, who are all socialists, and who are all working fastidiously against religious and nationalist Jews. And Netanyahu has to deal with it without creating a civil war. What do the Arabs think about all the time? They think about, let's attack Israel because they're on the verge of a civil war. I'm telling you, you know, my wife, Rachel, who I love very much, is always a very optimistic person. And here she's very depressed. Every day she's very depressed because of the lack of unity in the Israeli population and all the enemies uniting to destroy us. And as you all know, I've been wanting to come to the States. I've been needing to come to the States for finances, for work, and I cannot leave here. I'll tell you something else also. My son, Aaron, picked up a broadcast a few days ago. He immediately reported it to the commander of the Central Command in the Israeli Army. They were very appreciative. The gist of the meeting was my son was listening. I shouldn't be saying what he does in the Army, but he was listening to a 1 hour Palestinian radio program, TV and radio program, where the leaders of the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria were harassing the Arabs of Judea and Samaria, saying, listen, the Gazans are fighting Israel with heroism. Lebanon is fighting Israel with heroism. Iran is ready to fight Israel with heroism. Everyone is fighting Israel with heroism except for the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria who are sitting on their butts, excuse the expression. And so they're calling for this Saturday, the coming Saturday, which is the 4th of August, they're calling for an intifada in which all the Palestinian towns in Judea and Samaria will rise up and attack the Jewish settlements. One of them is my settlement. So think for a moment that a war breaks out with Lebanon. The Israeli military invades the south of Lebanon. Our army invades Lebanon. Our army is in Gaza. There's relatively little army to defend the settlements in Judea and Samaria. And then the Palestinians will rise up in a massive intifada and attack all the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. And then Iran will launch missiles at us. Lebanon will launch missiles at us. Turkey will invade northern Cyprus again and bring in 500,000 soldiers to kill all the Christians in Cyprus, to take over Cyprus, to prevent Israel from developing its gas. Israel will have to fight in Cyprus to defend the Greeks there. We have an alliance with them. We have an alliance with Greece. Greece is also a member of NATO. So Turkey and Greece are members of NATO, but they're going to have to fight each other. And Israel's right in the middle of it. And Christians are going to be slaughtered in the millions here in the Middle East. And Biden says, don't. Biden says, we can't defend you. We don't have your back. I mean, what's gone wrong with the United States? I mean, this is terrible. And Trump is the only one who understands it, but Trump's not the president right now. So I'm a little apologetic about the diatribe, but we are literally before World War III. And Israel, I don't want to say what Israel will do, but I don't know what Israel will do. But if everybody tries to jump us, you can imagine what Israel's going to do. And the United States stands back, stands down, and you've got probably the stupidest woman in America for vice president candidate, for presidential candidate. And we sit here in Israel, we laugh and we cry at the same time. How can America have such a candidate for the presidency? Can you imagine? We say to ourselves that even Biden is better now than Kamala Harris. And it's a long way, a long time before the elections on November 6th. And then even a longer time till January 20th when the president enters the White House. And I'm not even sure if the Democrats will allow a correct vote or will allow Trump to stay alive. I mean, you know what? You guys are facing a civil war of your own. And we here face a civil war of our own. And in addition to all that, we have all these Arab countries and Muslim countries, because Turkey and Iran are not Arab, they're Muslim. And the UN is against us. The International Tribunal is against us in The Hague, in Netherlands. Crazy, crazy situation. And this is something that only the Lord can prevent. So hopefully, I believe the Lord will be with us. I believe we're going to see miracles we've never seen before. But just pray for us. You pray for us. I pray for you guys, because America needs a true Christian leadership that understands the imperatives here. So this is my summary for the first 20 minutes. You can ask any question you want, and you know, the best stuff comes out during the questions.
I saw on Zero Hedge yesterday that I guess Egypt is intending to send troops into Gaza. If you could say a word about that.
Yes, we have been watching Egypt very carefully. And, on the one hand, we are very proud of our peace agreement with Egypt. And we've been saying all along that the peace agreement with Egypt is so valuable to us and so important to us. And God forbid, we should say anything that might offend the Egyptians, because they're very touchy, about their honor. But the Egyptians have they had a problem with ISIS in northern Sinai. And they asked Israel to help bomb the heck out of the ISIS people in northern Sinai. Israel helped them because we have an alliance with Egypt. They asked permission from Israel, and they got it, to bring into Sinai more Egyptian forces than are allowed by the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. Now we told them, okay, ISIS is finished, go back. No, they won't go back. This is a typical thing in Islamic history, that they get permission to enter an area and then they will never pull back because Islam has to go control it. And of course, Israel has to be destroyed. The Egyptians have not changed. The Egyptians strategically still see Israel as a country that has to be destroyed. Tactically, they made peace. Tactically, peace is something you can break at any time. But the Egyptians have also put in missile batteries in the middle of Sinai, which can bomb any part of Israel. The missiles are not for anyone else other than Israel. So the Egyptians are looking for the weak spot in Israel to attack when the time has come that Israel is so exhausted from war with Gaza, war with Lebanon, war with Iran. Then Egypt comes in. Maybe Turkey comes in also. My 8th book, which I'm not able to write, but I keep talking about it, is the second Battle of Lepanto, in which the entire Turkish fleet gets sunk. I don't know if you all remember what I told you about my dear Christian friend in Cyprus, George Kazinos, where he spoke about the whole Turkish fleet was off the bay of Kyrenia, where his summer house was. And he saw the red flags of the Turkish ships. He woke up his wife and his kids said, we've got to get out of here fast. And in their pajamas, they got in the car and they started driving down the mountain from Kyrenia to Nicosia, and they saw the Turkish troops parachuting behind them. 160,000 Greeks were kicked out of the northern part of Cyprus. And Casino says to me, we all know that the day is going to come that the Turks are going to take the rest of the island. And he says to me, my money is not invested in Greece and Athens. That's too close to the Turks. My money is invested in London. Because he understands that the Turks are going to take everything. Especially if America has a president that says, don't. When the president of the United States says, don't, it's like saying, come and rape me. And the Muslims are ready to do it. And the problem is Americans have no clue about the history. Americans do not understand that Cyprus was an Italian island until 1571, and because the Turkish fleet was completely sunk, but the Turks were still at the top of their power, they said to the Catholics of Spain and Venice, you rebuild our fleet or we'll take all of Europe, because they were taking Europe. They were already in Austria. The war with Islam has been a multi-front, multi-century war. And then the British in 1878 said, okay, we're taking the island of Cyprus for 99-year lease, like Hong Kong. And but in 1977, it was 99 years. And the Turks said, where's our island? We want Cyprus back. And they're not getting it back. So the Turks are hopping mad. The Turks are going to invade from their areas that they control. They already have a beachhead. in northern Cyprus, right into the center of Nicosia. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, if you guys know the geography here. And the Israeli commandos have been training with the national forces of Cyprus and Greece. Our Air Force has been training and getting ready in Cyprus, because if the Turks take Cyprus, we lose our gas. We lose our air routes over Eastern Mediterranean. So we are really on the verge of a very major explosion with a weak American president and a vice president who's running for president who doesn't know her right from her left. I mean, you think about it. You tell us what we should do. And I'm glad that Prime Minister Netanyahu is prime minister. He's the best man we've ever had. He understands these things. And I'm nobody. But the best I can do, I do with these Zooms. And I don't even know when I'm going to come back to the States. Because if the war breaks out with all these countries, they're going to bomb Jerusalem, they said. They're going to bomb Tel Aviv. They're going to shut down our airport. We're going to shut down Beirut airport, but they're going to shut down our airport. And Americans don't know what's going on. All they know is Israel is wrong. Israel is to blame for everything. But the Egyptians, answering your question, the Egyptians are getting ready for war with Israel, probably when they see that Israel has been sufficiently weakened, making it possible for the Egyptians for victory. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Good question. So Egypt is in the picture. Turkey, as of yesterday, is in the picture. Iran is in the picture. Yemen to the south is in the picture. Syria, Iraq are in the picture. They may overrun Abdullah and King of Jordan. And then we have another front. Because you're going to have millions of volunteers coming in to attack Israel. It's like 10 hyenas against one lion of Judah. Any other questions?
Avi, some of us follow some alternative news sources on Telegram, especially news sources coming out of Israel. Some of them seem to be indicating that support for Netanyahu is eroding within Israel. Do you agree with that?
Firstly, I have to tell you something, and I've said this many, many times on these Zoom meetings. Ballpark figure of our population, we have 10 million people, about 20% are Muslim, 20% are leftist, socialist, anti-Zionist. That's 40%, and 60%, 65% are Likud, Orthodox, and right-wing. So there is a majority for the right wing. People control the media, are left and anti-Netanyahu, and they make a lot of noise. I don't know if any of you heard, but yesterday there was a big scandal that 9 reservist soldiers who were serving as guards over the prisoners, the Gaza terrorist murderers, were arrested supposedly for mistreating a Palestinian terrorist who should just be shot. There were massive demonstrations by right-wing people because we should not be treating our soldiers like this. And in the end, what seems happened was that the terrorist in jail abused and injured seriously another terrorist. And they said, no, the Israelis did it. So we should not be believing the Arabs for a moment. But again, I don't know, did any of you hear about this in your media? So the media makes it look like...
I did. Huh? I heard about it, but not through the media. I have other sources.
Yes, yeah. Everything is other sources, but most Americans are having a picnic. They have no idea what's going on. So I don't know what to tell you. You know, we are always on the verge of a civil war because our top judges are socialist communists. And they are doing everything to make sure that the 60% of the population, which is right-wing and religious, will be defeated by the minority. In the end, there's going to be an explosion in Israel also. And you know, the Muslims are waiting for that too. Many people say that the October 7th massacre at the Nova Party was because they were saying all along, Israel is divided. They're not ready to fight. The Israeli Air Force is not ready to fly because they are all refusing orders given by the commanders. Because commanders, they're not right-wing, but they're following what Netanyahu is telling them. And I would say this is the time now more than ever to stand with Netanyahu. You know what? Personally, I don't know how Netanyahu can withstand all this terrorism from the Israeli left. The situation is not good in the country, you know, and these people will not relinquish power to the majority. Israel is not a democratic country. The Israeli Knesset or Israeli parliament has absolutely no power. Every law that is debated in Knesset and brought for a vote gets shot down by the judges in the Supreme Court. We tried to make some kind of reforms. It got shot down by the Supreme Court. We can't do anything. The Supreme Court is a non-elected body of socialists and communists that overthrow everything Netanyahu and the government tried to set up. And this has been going on for 20, 30 years. Did I answer your question, Laurie?
Yes, thank you.
We, again, God forbid, you may be seeing a civil war in your media news about a civil war in Israel. And the socialists, I don't want to say they don't take prisoners. I mean, you know my history. I came to Israel. I got fired from 3 different jobs. They said, we know your political views. You can't go ahead in Israel if you're right-wing. And the only people who helped me for the last 35, 36 years are you guys, the Christians. And you guys, I don't know how many of, you know, I think it is said that 70% of Americans are Christians, go to church. So I think the vast majority of the Americans supports Israel. But the American media is doing a cutthroat job on Israel, and the Jews in America are supporting the cutthroat job against Israel. Because American Jews hate Israel. American Jews hate Judaism. They don't want to know about Israel. Trump said it, and Trump was right. So things are just not good. And I, as a believing Jew, know that we're going to win in the end, but it's going to be tremendous miracles. I would say miracles just as great, if not greater, than what we saw in Egypt 4,000 years ago.
Avi, how does the Supreme Court come to power? How did they get in?
Okay. Now, the story of Israel is, you remember Mark Twain? Mark Twain came to Israel in 1867, and he said, Israel is a horrible place. Israel is completely forlorn, completely inhospitable. And you have a few walled cities, and people live in them. But when you go from city to city, there's no population. The country's empty. And, you know, Mark Twain said, if this is the promised land, I sure don't want it promised to me. Because it was horrible. It was deserts and swamps and bare mountains. And what happened was, in the late 1800s, Jews began to immigrate from Russia, Poland, also from Islamic countries. It was a very slow process, a very bloody process. Jewish people bought land with gold, and that land was swamp land. And the absentee landlords were happy to sell it because they got the gold. And according to the Middle East law, when the Israelis would all die of different diseases, including malaria, the land would revert back to the absentee landlords who were living in Beirut and Damascus. And what happened was that the Jews, I'm giving you Israel's history in a few minutes, that the Jews brought eucalyptus trees from Australia, which are very thirsty trees. And the swamps got drained. It was a process. And the swamps are turned into luscious gardens of Eden. So when the Arabs saw this, all of a sudden, this triggered in 1920 massive riots by the Arabs. This is the first in many riots against the Jewish people, killing of Jewish people. There was no Jewish state. There was no Palestinian state. It was just local Arabs, many of whom came from Syria or Iraq or Egypt or Sudan or Arabia or Lebanon. But the unifying ideology of these Jews from 1880 to 1920 was socialist, mostly. And the socialists put together the Jewish Agency, the Stadrut. These are all socialist organizations put together by Jews who fled the Soviet Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. One of the golden rules of this Jewish Agency and the Stadrut was to kick out all the right-wing Jews, because the socialists and communists didn't like the right-wing Jews, because the right-wing Jews were nationalists. And if you know the history of Europe in the 1920s, you were either a socialist or a nationalist. When Mussolini came to power in 1922, many of the right-wing Jews flocked to the cause of Mussolini fascism. And so the socialists were given even more tinder to attack the Jews who were right-wing and impose restrictions on the Jews who were right-wing to inform on them to the British authorities. And basically all power from 1920 was in the hands of the socialists and communists. By the way, there was a communist party. To this day, there's a communist party in Israel. It's negligible, but in those days, it was an important factor. The socialists were an important factor. So to answer your question, Susan, the Supreme Court, all of the Israeli ministries, the foreign ministry, the military, the police, everything is rock solid controlled by socialists and communists. The problem that they face is that the right-wing Jews and the religious Jews demographically are growing much more quickly than the socialists and communists. So today, as I said before, 60% of the population is right-wing and religious, 60%, 20% is socialist, 20% is Arab. So the 20% that is socialist cannot stand the idea of sharing power or giving any power to the right wing. All the judges in the Supreme Court are socialists and communists, and they follow orders, and they do what they're told. And these judges appoint other judges to replace them. It's not like in America where you can vote for your local judge according to your district. That doesn't exist in Israel. So the judges in the Supreme Court, when they know they have to retire, they bring in a judge who's part of their group. And right-wing people are not part of the group. I'm telling you, I was fired from the Prime Minister's office. I was one of the best translators they ever had. And they said to me, "We know your views, you're fired," even though I got a tender for my position. In 1995, when Rabin got assassinated, I wasn't in Israel. I was in Pennsylvania. And I was acting rabbi in a conservative synagogue in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. But there were some communist socialists from Israel who had left Israel, and they called my commander in the army, said, "Avi is one of those who killed Rabin." I got court-martialed. That's democracy? That's idiocy. But maybe God had a reason for me not to have a job in the Prime Minister's office, not to be a rabbi in Pennsylvania. Also, when I went to seminary, I opposed homosexuality and abortion. They threw me out also because that's the left-wing ideology. They said, you're not one of us. The only place where people say you're one of us is the Christians, you guys. So you understand, Susan, how the Supreme Court is functioning?
Yes, unfortunately, I do. It all starts with somebody with an ideal that they think is better than the other one, thinking that they're good, and that's right, comes out of the human heart. It's evil above all else.
So also, I'll tell you another thing. America has good nationalist forces, right-wing forces who support Trump. America is a country that was founded by religious Christians. Jews were in America from 1648. I mean, Jews were in America from the very beginning, and Jews were always blessed in America. Of course, a lot of these Jews later intermarried with Christians and disappeared, but the Jews who came to the U.S. at the turn of the last century, in the 1900s, these people were so hurt by the pogroms and the persecutions in Europe that when they came here, they saw the American Christians as just another form of the same type of Christians, without realizing that the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant American Christians are not like the Nazi type Christians in Europe that wanted to kill the Jews. So the Jews who came from Russia and Poland, these were universalists, and they could not think of being allied with the left-wing Jew, with the right. The left-wing Jews who came from Europe could not be part of a Trump type Christian nationalist group. Now, the good thing is, I don't know if it's going to help anything, but from what I heard in the latest report, 60% of the American Jews are Democrat, and the Trump people are up to 40%. So the right-wing nationalist American Jews are growing in numbers. I don't know if it's good enough, but you all know my life with a neo-Nazi in Florida was that 2/3 of the Jews were socialists and 33% were nationalists. So, but that meant that still all the Jews had to be killed. I don't know. I think that there are thousands and thousands, if not millions, of Muslims in America who are just waiting for the call to kill the Jews. And the Jews are so stupid and so blind. Neo-Nazis are also going to kill them, because the neo-Nazis say the Jews are communists. Let's kill them. The Muslims say the Jews are Jews. Let's kill them. Black Lives Matter say that the Jews are slumlords. And why did the Jews support, I see Claire from Malta saying, and in Europe and the UK, and also in America, the Jews support abortion, which means, now listen to this, if the Jews support abortion, whose babies get aborted? The black babies. So the Jews are genocidally against the blacks. That's what the Black Lives Matter says. Anyone who supports abortion supports genocide of the blacks in America. So the Jews are in the forefront. The Jews have to be killed. Then you have Antifa. Antifa wants to kill the Jews too. I mean, everything is so crazy right now. I just, like, I don't want to say I don't get it. I do get it. And the only answer is God. The only answer is the Lord. So it'll be interesting to see where this all goes. While you guys are thinking, I'm pouring myself some more seltzer. I'm ready for any question you may have.
Avi?
Yes.
Make a comment concerning the situation in Venezuela and Latin America. You are as knowledgeable about Latin America as anybody I know. What's going on there?
Well, yes, I agree.
I think they're in the middle of a civil war. The populace is rising up. The cops I saw and the National Guard are going on to the side of the people.
Are you talking about Venezuela?
Yeah.
Well, I hope so. Listen, Venezuela was the wealthiest country in Latin America for decades. And then when Hugo Chavez came in, he destroyed everything. And Maduro is continuing that. And millions and millions and millions of Venezuelans have fled, gone to other countries. I think I mentioned this in a previous Zoom. When I come to the States, Dallas is my base. And the hotel where I stay is a Marriott. Very nice hotel. And when I first started going to that hotel, all the people in the hotel, cleaning people and others, were Mexican. And then very sweet people working very hard. I mean, I speak Spanish. It's my mother tongue, so I would speak to them. Then all of a sudden, I'd go back to Israel, come back to the States, come back always to the same hotel. And then all of a sudden, there were Central Americans, not Mexicans. Sweet people, Christian, hardworking. Then I go back to Israel. I come back another time. And then guess what? They're Venezuelans. Sweet people, hardworking Christians. And I talk to them. And they're very sweet people. They know I'm Jewish. They know I'm from Israel. Wonderful people. But all these people had to flee from Venezuela. And people are still fleeing from Central America because of the corrupt leadership there. And I think one of the good things, and I said this in the past broadcast, is that the Argentines had a very corrupt Peronist system from the 1940s until now. That's 80 years, complete corruption. And for those of you who may know Spanish, the motto of the Argentine people is that roban de dia, crece de noche, which means they steal during the day, and at night when they're sleeping, they're not stealing, they're sleeping, so everything grows back. Argentina is so rich. Argentina has exactly the same natural resources like the United States. But everything was mismanaged. Everything was wrong. And now there's a leader who, by the way, we don't know really if he converted to Judaism or he's just a Judeophile, but he's an economist. And he's setting Argentina straight. And his motto is make Argentina great again, MAGA, just like America. And is it any surprise that Trump is his hero? I love this guy. And nobody wants to admit that a Jewish president or somebody close to the Jews would be good for Israel. He's also clamping down on the judicial system, which basically ignored the Iranian bombs that went off in 1992 and 1994. And so he's moving the embassy to Jerusalem. There's another country neighboring Argentina to the north called Paraguay. Paraguay is moving its embassy to Jerusalem also now. So there are two countries in South America that have had enough of this stupidity of the left. Chile was always a right-wing country, but one of the things we see is that the Palestinian and Muslim population in Chile is so big that they influence the elections, and all of a sudden Chile is anti-Israel. Colombia, which is always a friend of Israel, is now anti-Israel. Ecuador, Peru, Brazil. Have we forgotten Bolsonaro? Bolsonaro is a Christian. And Lula da Silva, who's the president now, was put in power by a group of judges who were all in jail, and Lula da Silva got them out of jail. And they're socialists, because socialism is all corruption. So, you know what? On the one hand, I say to myself, well, the Americans don't want to get involved. The Americans are isolationists. There's always this isolationism in the American people. But I'm a former American who believes in the Monroe Doctrine, that the United States cannot tolerate a communist or socialist a stab in the back from South America or Central America. And if America wants to remain world power number one, it's got to do something. So I see that things are improving as far as I'm concerned in Latin America. I hope the people have their say in Venezuela. By the way, the people in Venezuela cannot have their say unless Biden supports them, because they will be suppressed and murdered by the socialists. The socialists, the Iranians, and the Chinese. You want to hear something crazy? I'm going to tell you something crazy. In order to increase popularity for the Maduro regime, they are saying they're going to invade their next door neighbor to the east, Guyana. It was once called British Guyana. Now it's a country called Guyana. And the Venezuelans are saying that 2/3 of Guyana are Venezuelan. So the Venezuelans have the right to invade Guyana and take over that land, basically annex Guyana. What is Biden saying? Don't. I don't know how long this can continue. And the problem is that the nations overseas look at the U.S. as a very weak country with a very weak president. And an American people that is misinformed or not informed at all about anything. I mean, look at the news media in America. They talk about Wall Street. They talk about the weather. They talk about sports. And they talk about fluff. Everything is fluff. Even Fox News gives too much fluff. So Israel is all alone. Anyone fighting for their rights is all alone. Here, look at these young boys and girls in Iran in 2009. Obama could have saved these kids and overthrown that government. And instead, thousands of innocent people were murdered and tortured by the Ayatollah regime. By the way, this has nothing to do with Israel. And the Iranian people are saying, how long more do we have to suffer under this regime? Because the Iranian people have a history of always being allies of the Jewish people. So these Iranian Ayatollahs, they are an anomaly. They have to be removed.
So, Avi, on the question of Venezuela, are you saying that the revolt that's happening right now it's following the path that Argentina and other countries have set? And I mean, so do you think it'll be successful and Maduro will be kicked out?
You cannot compare Argentina with Venezuela. Argentina is a country that went through some very, very difficult times with dictatorships, primarily right-wing military dictatorships. That is finished. But what the Argentinians had a problem with was the corrupt Peronista socialist government there. Finally, the Argentine people said, enough, we've had enough of this. Let's give this economist a chance. Maybe he can pull Argentina out of its debt. And it seems like the International Monetary Fund is going to come forward with a very important loan for Argentina to restructure the debt and help Argentina lift its currency and its government up, lift the economy up. Venezuela is a very, very different case because Venezuela has been controlled by communists, by Russians, Chinese, and Cuba. Cuba also has to be dealt with. But Cuba is hardcore communist now. And as you all know, most of the good Cubans came to America. Most of the good Venezuelans came to America.
So you don't think it will be successful overthrowing Maduro?
As long as the communists think that Biden is a puppet and of Obama, who's pro-Russian and pro-socialist, pro-Marxist, you cannot defeat Maduro. I pray I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but you need a good, strong leadership in Washington to overthrow Maduro. And probably U.S. military intervention. Do you think Biden will do a U.S. intervention in the Caribbean? I don't. Good question.
Hi. Avi, it's Angela.
Yes, dear.
Hello. I noticed that Xi Jinping of China and President Putin of Russia both came out with a statement saying they supported Maduro in his democratic election, so-called. Well, that's going to make it very difficult for the Biden administration to say anything about the situation in Venezuela, being themselves almost communistic, if you like, the way they're running things. And we all know Obama is a huge fan of the Alinsky politics, which has been guiding that country into, guiding America into. So, by all intents and purposes, you would think that this present administration is happy with Maduro being in power in Venezuela. It is almost, they're just saying as far as I'm aware, they have made no comment yet on the situation with Venezuela. But I'm also aware that China and Russia have both been on maneuvers in American territory in Alaska, which they have done and said nothing about. And then today we've got, again, rockets being fired multiple times into Israel, into northern Israel from Hezbollah in Lebanon. I think somebody has been killed, and even there's been a drone attack in the Galilee just about half an hour ago. And the US Secretary of State for Defense has said that they will come to Israel's defense if Hezbollah attacks Israel. Well, Hezbollah is continually attacking Israel, and they are doing nothing. What do you think that after Netanyahu's visit to the US, what is the consensus in Israel? You keep saying we feel we're all alone, and for all intents and purposes, it definitely looks that way. But do you think the US will do anything? I mean, I really feel it's a precipice. It could just go up any minute. And I think when I see like Erdogan making statements that he's going to invade Turkey, he's like he knows something. Because otherwise, why did he pick that moment to say that? I think there's a lot going on that, like you say, it's not being reported properly on the news channels in any country, I don't think. But all in all, it looks like this is a moment we're all holding our breath. And I've just come from a prayer meeting. We've been praying for you all morning. And we also are praying for Israel, for miracles, for God just to release miracles. And because you're going to we really feel and see that you're going to need them. It's very distressing looking on and listening to you and seeing what's going on and what's not going on and what should be going on that isn't happening. And I think they're focused on what we're going to do about stopping Trump getting elected rather than, they've kind of created this mess with their politics, with Iran, and giving away power all the time to Israel's enemies, empowering Israel's enemies all the time. They've kind of created this mess. And they're culpable. And it's distressing to see this hatred and this level of violence. And we can all see that, we're on the verge of a World War III here. But inside Israel, is that in the consciousness of every citizen? I'm sure it is. But Netanyahu's in between a rock and a hard place. He's trying to defend everything with his hands tied behind his back. But do you think you'll go for it if you need to, if you really need to?
Well, regarding Netanyahu and the Israeli government, he is surrounded by left-wing generals because there are no right-wing generals. All the generals came out of military training. If you're right-wing, you can, with good luck, and if you're really good, you can rise to colonel. Above colonel, there is no toleration of right-wing people in the general staff. So Netanyahu has only the left-wing generals to work with. Many of the left-wing generals are patriotic and good generals. Many of them are not. They suffer from a concept of pacifism. Basically, Israeli policy is, we're sorry, we took your land, here, take it back. But the Arab world doesn't want the land back. They just want to destroy Israel. So when Kamala Harris gives a speech and says, oh, the poor Palestinians, what she's saying is kill the Jews, destroy Israel. And Kamala Harris, if you go back to her family and her upbringing, she's a Marxist. She always was a Marxist. If somebody's a Marxist, they are against God. If they're against God, they're against the Bible, they're against the Christians, they're against the Jews. So there's a very, very clear division. The President of the United States today does not want to do anything that would smell of nationalism or Christianity or American interests or Israel. Today, the idea is kumbaya. You know what kumbaya is? We all get together, we all have a smoke pot and have a good time. So I don't think that we have the right leadership. And I repeat, from previous meetings, I believe the elections were stolen. And I believe if this next election gets stolen again, there'll be a civil war in America, which is not good for Israel. But for those of us who believe in God, Jew or Christian, same God, I think we're going to see miracles.
Yeah.
And Europe also needs the miracles. Europe is in a bad way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I wish I was young again. When I was young, I was saying I wish I could get old so I could, have the knowledge and be able to say things with more authority, which I'm doing. But I feel like I'm sad that I'm not young, that I can't go to Cyprus and speak to the Greek Cypriots and build an alliance with the Greeks and with the Cypriots. But I think the Israeli Foreign Ministry is doing a pretty good job. If I was younger, I would go back to the States and go back to driving 50,000 kilometers, 30,000 miles a year across country, drive to Canada, drive to Mexico, drive and speak. And I feel, my strength is waning, and that basically I'm only good now for doing Zooms. I mean, of course, and party matters. When the time comes for the Bible Block Party to run in the next election again, if I'm still alive, in 2006, then I'll have my meetings, I'll talk. But the idea of driving so much like I was driving for the last 35 years, I always had this chronic back pain and back and abdominal pain, and the doctor has forbidden me to lift anything. All the pain went away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm feeling a lot better. I did a lot of medical tests. Everything came out negative. So, I think my situation, God is saying to me, you stay in Israel and you do what you have to do. So you're not going to make any money, but you're going to at least stay alive without pain.
Yeah.
Maybe I can come to see you in Malta, because Malta, there's not too much driving to do.
It's too small, driving to the sea. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
From sea to shining sea.
Yeah. I pray.
Any other questions? Thank you, Neil. Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is going on in so many places, and now with the UK, with this new president or governor, whatever he's called, and it's bad. The things that have happened there in the last 2-3 weeks, with the abortion and everything, and then there was a shooting. Was it yesterday, the day before, at a school? I don't know how many dead young people.
No, it was a stabbing, Claire.
A stabbing, was it?
Of children.
Yeah, children.
Mm.
And you've got all the same thing, you know, but he was born here, it was this, it was that. You've got British can be very like, oh, we don't want to upset, you know. But as Christians, we need to be strong and not cowards, because God hates cowards. And the things that I see here as well. So,
Well,
yeah.
listen, God is in control, but
Yeah.
we as human beings, Jews and Christians, we have a choice to make.
Yeah.
And if we do take God's side, you know where we are in the next kingdom. But if we go against God, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. 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 Mm.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was appalled to see how Netanyahu was greeted here in the United States with the effigies and all that they were burning, like they were burning him, and the burning of our flag, and the Palestinians doing awful stuff to the statue there and raising the Palestinian flag. I don't understand why we are allowing it why they even allow it. It's not free speech, it's lawlessness. But I don't understand why they would ever let them protest that way with him coming, or anybody, at the rate that they're doing, and the desecration of tearing down our nation from within. I don't understand why they're allowed to do it.
Okay, well, firstly, Glenda, you have to remember that Islam sees America as the great Christian Satan, meaning America must be Islamicized. Everything that America holds holy must be destroyed. So they burn the American flags, they desecrate the statues of our great heroes, they attack Netanyahu, the effigies, all this. I would say primarily this is Islamic terrorism. And like I said before, the American leadership is Marxist socialist, which is directly allied with the Muslims. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that in the last elections, 34 million Christians didn't even go to vote. So it's very important in the next election for all the Christians to get out and vote, if anything of this is important to them. And unfortunately, there are many Christians that say, oh, we're not even going to be here. We're going to be raptured. You know, I'm sorry to say it, but there are many Jews who say, oh, there'll never be a Holocaust against the Jews in America. God would not allow it. I'm just saying we're facing a very dangerous time now where Jews and Christians will be slaughtered. And it's something that if we don't vote, the system in America supposedly is to vote. So you got to vote, get people out to vote. Unfortunately, a lot of the people don't go out to vote because a lot of people don't know what's going on. I hate to say what the hell is going on, but Americans just are not really interested into international politics or international religious struggles, especially with Islam. Many Americans have forgotten their Christian roots. So kumbaya, everything's kumbaya. We got to get along with the Muslims. No, we don't have to get along. Thank you for your question, Glenda.
It just seems to me that we don't have much of a choice between candidates. It's like I'm so frustrated with Trump and his mouth, and I just wish that he would just, quit. That all of our politicians, not all of them, but some of them, seems like all they do is badger one another, and you don't really get to know what they really stand for or what they plan to do.
Right.
It's just,
Well, Trump did
just
it.
turn them off.
We could look back at Trump's 4 years. His mouth is terrible, but it doesn't even give a question of who to vote for. We know what he did for 4 years. If he would shut up, talk about that, it would help. But it shouldn't confuse those who knew what he did for 4 years, as opposed to killers and abortionists and pagans.
I have to tell you, Glenda, I voted twice for Trump. Of course, I'm, of course, going to support Trump because of everything that Susan Pellegrini just said about Israel, about Jerusalem, about the Golan Heights, about nationalism for America. And tell me, Glenda, did you see the movie Patton, General Patton?
No, I didn't.
You should. It's a good movie. But let me tell you, General Patton had a very foul mouth. And if you've been in the army, which I don't think you've been, or if your husband's been in the military, foul mouth is something you expect in military. And if a general doesn't swear and curse, it's very hard to find leaders who don't swear and curse. But Patton was a great general. By the way, he was an anti-Semite. He didn't like Jews, but he helped to win the war. So, very often you've got to put aside the cursing, foul mouth, and say, well, you know what? We're all human beings. And sometimes human beings have a weakness or a sin. You got to overlook it. You can't rule out throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've got to go with President Trump. He's the only one who can save America. It's either President Trump or a civil war. I'm telling you right now.
I had a whole list of things that he did for Israel and things that he did for the United States. And many people don't even know about it. Many people in the United States don't even know about it.
Correct. Thank you, Annette.
If you look at the simple thing like opening the borders, why do you open a border of a nation? You open borders to destroy it. And that's exactly what the Democrats are attempting to do, is destroy this nation. So if you vote for anybody other than Trump, you're in real trouble.
I'll tell you something also, Eric. It's something that many people understand, and that is the idea to flood America with illegals was that they'd have more votes for the Democrat Party, because actually the direction of the American population is also right wing, not left. But if you bring in, impoverished illegals, you've bought them. They belong to you, and that's the Democrat approach. Whether or not
also,
it destroys
who
America.
Else is coming in? Who else is coming into this nation along with? I say, who else is coming into this nation along with people from
well, you're talking about Chinese, you're talking about Russians, Ukrainians, Pakistanis, and Arabs and others who don't believe in Christian America.
We want to destroy this nation.
Yeah, agree with you.
So vote for Trump.
Amen.
It's a very clear defining evil and good, black and white. I don't even think it's something you got to pray about, unless you want to pray if God is finished with the country and wants to end it all. Not even a choice.
Agreed.
Some people
I always agree with you, Susan. Always agree. Isn't it horrible that when you agree with a smart woman all the time?
I have a friend that she thinks he did horrible things. She thinks that Trump, and she's a good friend of mine. She believes that Trump brought in the COVID virus. People believe horrible things about him. I don't even know where they get that from.
Okay, guys, you're going to have to forgive me. I have in 15 minutes another Zoom with God's Learning Channel in Odessa, Texas, and we'll meet again. I have to tell you, I have some, I don't know if it's good news or not. I think it's good news. I have a new Zoom, which will be appearing on Fridays, which will be about 10 a.m. Eastern time. So I'm going to do the Zoom, see how it goes, and see if he's interested in more people who may want to join. I mean, I'm very pleased that we have Claire from Malta, Sophia wasn't here from Greece, and all of you from all over the United States and other areas. So I'm now theoretically up to 4 Zooms, 2 on Tuesday, 1 on Thursday, and 1 on Friday. So that's all I can do with my bare hands here in America.
Avi, I want to tell you something. You keep thinking that you're doing nothing and that's all you can do, and whatever you're thinking, you finish, you are. We're all here because of the education you gave us.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the lines. So now is the time that you just keep repeating what you already did, and those that heard it, that are here, are repeating it. So you've done. If there's something more to do, God will show you. But for now, you're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. So be encouraged.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Amen,
also,
Avi.
huh?
We're praying
I said amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I want you to pray for Israel's electrical supply and internet connection, because if a massive war breaks out, we may be shorting out on electricity and internet. So every show that we do is really a gift from God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pray. Yeah. Thanks, Avi.
Bless you, Avi.
God bless you all, and God willing, we meet next Tuesday.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. God bless
God
you.
willing.
Give Rachel a kiss from us.
Yes.
God bless.
God bless you.
I see Lori. So, Lori,
God
thank you
bless.
for being the greatest hostess.
No
With the
problem.
mostest.
The hostess with the mostest.
Yeah.
Shalom, 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 shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. Bye-bye.
Shalom.
Bye.
Bye.